learn and apply whatever little something you will get from this talk. And I'd like to thank Dival, Ma'am Kia, Ma'am Michelle, for giving way to this kind of interaction with you. So, Ma'am, today we will be talking about bit-sized distance learning through practical modular approach. Kind of long, right? But I'm here to simplify things, but at the same time, will help you apply the concepts in a more practical way. So would you like to show the first slide? So even though we are in GCQ, we are still restricted in a way. We cannot go out yet the way we want to. And when each time we go out, we have to be very careful and keep in mind that the virus is still out there trying to wait for its next prey. So we have to really be cautious and, if as much as possible, stay away from crowds and get to understand that we still are waiting for a cure, we still are waiting for the vaccine, but this is a hope against hope that sometime August or sometime before winter, help is around, and that's the cure and that's the vaccine, because the whole world is racing against one another in coming up with either a cure or a vaccine. But I go for cure, and I'm really praying hard that the medicine will come about pretty soon. All right, I think the slides are ready, and let's start. As I said, this afternoon we will try to make things simple for everyone, and this will not just be for teachers, for learner, for educators, but this is for everyone who's interested to learn. And you don't need to be a teacher nor to be an educator to be able to learn. All we have to do is just to be willing to learn. All right, for this afternoon, allow me to, share the following terminologies with you in a more simple way. So when we talk about bite-sized, we simply want to remember it as the way we look at it in a way. I want us to remember it in a very specific way, and the word that I go for that is capsulized. What's in a capsule? Everyone knows what is in a capsule. And when we talk about bite-sized learning, it's just like taking a capsule, and after a few minutes, the particular capsule will help you will make someone feel better. Now, we've been talking about distance learning way before pandemic came about, but really a lot of institutions and people in the world may not have focused on distance learning before pandemic happened. Allow me to simply focus on learning at home or at home learning. And when we say at home learning, it doesn't mean that you have to be home. It could be somewhere. You could be somewhere that you could be somewhere. It could be anywhere. You could be in a small part of your room, as long as there is learning. But for the purpose of discussion today, let us just focus on at-home learning. Anyway, most people still are working from home, and most students specifically are learning at home. So let us just use at-home learning for the for today's afternoon. And as I said earlier, the talk will highlight the workable and doable way of doing bite-sized learning. But um, let us have an understanding of what a module is. It has something to do with sector or section. And anything that is modular is flexible and adjustable. So if you are going to look at the title of the talk um, we have for the afternoon, it's bite-sized distance learning through practical modular approaches. It's too long, right? Maybe we can just say at-home learning that's capsulized and flexible and adjustable. Okay, so are we clear on that? So we will try to make sense out of what we will be discussing today in a bite-sized way, meaning with just a bite, you will be nurtured. So that's my hope for this afternoon, and I hope you will stay with me in the next few minutes. Next slide. All right, so you may be wondering where this bite-sized learning came from, but really, this didn't come out of thin air. There was a basis by which people, anchor it from. First off, it was derived from self-learning and from individualized instruction. Most likely, just by looking at the terms, you get to understand what bite-sized learning is all about and how do we go about it. All right, so self-learning and individualized instruction. Next slide. They are big words, okay? Why do I call them big words? Basically, um, exploring self-learning and individualized instruction cannot take place in an hour or what. So it's a big word because you have to know more about a lot of things involving self-learning. There are a lot of theories as to how people learn. And if you really want to understand further about self-learning, go ahead. But as I said, this afternoon is all about capsulizing whatever we know about some things. So in this case, I'm trying to demonstrate with you what capsulization or bite-sized learning is all about. So this self-learning was actually propagated by Malcolm Knowles, and he thought of it as a process because he was majoring and focusing on andragogy. Andragogy is, if there's such thing as pedagogy, wherein basically we are talking about how young people, from the time they go to school and then they want to go to school, there's pedagogy. There's such thing as andragogy as well, wherein adults never stops learning. But this goes beyond the traditional schooling. However, because of the changing times, adults cannot just be reliant on whatever they know 10 or 15 years ago. They have to become lifelong learners. So Malcolm was one of the guys who started talking about lifelong learning. And I like us to remember, keep in mind that self-learning is all about initiative. Like when you become willing, you want to do something that will help you function as expected. When what I mean with that is that, for example, you are working in a company, you are working in an institution, and you want to still matter. You have to introduce some new things about. You have to introduce some new things about your craft or the office you represent. Excuse me for that. There has to be an initiative with or without the prompting of your boss, with or without the prompting of your teachers. You want to do things because you are willing, and you think you think that it is going to be putting meaning into your existence in that company, in that institution, or wherever you are. So when you do some initiation, it involves certain sense of autonomy. Hi guys, I'm back. I think I was caught for a few seconds. So what uh, where I stopped was in that context of Malcolm's understanding of self-learning, wherein it involves a process by which willingness of an individual um, is at the far front, with or without influence or assistance by others. And as they become involved and as they are willing to take the lead in their own learning, there is an understanding of what their learning needs are, what they really need to learn, why are they interested to know more about it. And thus they can formulate certain goals as to how to accomplish something with what they intend to achieve. And along with that formulation of goals, they will have to come up with human and material resources that would help them accomplish certain goals. And just like any other desire or any other goal, it always comes with assessment or evaluation, by which if these steps are really helpful to them. Next slide. What about individual instruction or individualized learning? Now, maybe people from um, who are studying education, special education, you are so familiarized with individualized instruction. But really, uh, it's not just for those areas, for those fields, but it's for everyone, especially this time and age wherein people are uh, to really develop more skills, and more skills that will help them, create resources. They really have to go through some self-learning and some sort of individualized instruction wherein at their own pace they can learn. So what's the difference between self-learning and individualized instruction? Individualized instruction is a method of teaching. It has something to do with how teachers, how an educator imparts learning. Okay, they may do it by using technology, but technically the main purpose is the pace of learning. So when you do individualized instruction, you consider the level of the learner, and the kind of activities and challenges you are to give them. However, it still comes with a purpose. You have to set clear and specific goals as you do the individualized instruction. It's as you become willing to really learn something, then you have to set a goal, and that goal is related to the purpose you have in mind. Yes, of course, you have to make your goals challenging and realistic, but keep in mind that, in bite-sized learning, in capsulized learning, we also have to understand your schema or your prior knowledge, maybe what you know about a certain topic, or what you don't know yet about a certain topic. So making your goals realistic and challenging is there, but you have to always base it on the level where you are at, right? So this has something to do with individualized instruction. It's right there on the screen. I challenge you to explore it further, but for the purpose of discussion today, let us just focus on the parenthesized words like the purpose, the modular, etc. So you see, the last part involves parents or academic advisors when necessary. So in short, bite-sized learning, capsulized learning, as we call it this afternoon, has something to do with the person's desire, the person's interest to uh, putting meaning to his current existence. Um, Staying at home doesn't really mean that you just stay at home, but you can do something while staying at home. Perhaps learning something new, or after 70 or so days of staying at home, maybe this time you are a good cook. If not all cuisine, maybe you have improved cooking your sinigang or your adobo. Do you know what I mean? So it has something to do with the self, with the individual. Bite-sized learning matters because there is a desire from the person to really want to learn. Next slide. So for this afternoon, allow me to just help you remember that my whole talk is all about meaningful learning. Whether it is self-learner or individualized or done individually, it focuses on how meaningful your endeavor is. Yes, of course, you have the initiative, you are willing, but does that give meaning to you? Does that have purpose? Okay, will it enrich you in a way? Because there are some involvements or engagements that you are willing, but it's not purposeful. It doesn't have any good impact on you or certain indicator of effectiveness. So when we consider bite-sized learning, let's think of the meaning out of it. So let's call it meaningful learning. Something that, a young kid can, after doing certain things, can remember in his entire life the value of that thing. Or a middle-aged person, after initiating or willingly getting into a program, has some sort of change in him that other people benefit from. There is some sort of an indicator that a certain task or a certain objective or goal, because it is purposeful, then becomes meaningful. And when you do it on your own, do it by practice every now and then, you become good at it. Why? Because nobody's forcing you, nobody's compelling you to do it now. No, you do it according to your own pace. As time goes by, you get to acquire the skill, and it's autonomous because you are doing it in your own pace. So remember, bite-sized learning is simply meaningful learning, wherein there is autonomy, there's mastery, and there's purpose. Can you do that for yourselves? Because I'm doing it for myself. Like, each time I am engaged in something, I always understand it on the context of autonomy and the context of mastery and purpose, as well as does it give meaning, not just for me and for the people I live with or I come across with. So, next slide. So, for today, let's just have one goal in mind, and that is to do something based on the material that I'll show you a little later. Capsulized learning or bite-sized learning is focusing only on one goal or objective. Usually, it comes from 5 to 25 minutes or 5 to 30 minutes. And after 30 minutes, there has to be an outcome or an indicator of effectiveness. Of course, transformation of perspective is not something you can see right away, but it's something that is manifested through your action. So whether in the context of 5 to 25 minutes or 5 to 30 minutes, whether something is visible or not, bite-sized learning's goal is for that particular minutes or for that 30 minutes, for a learner to be able to really take some sort of change within him. So later, when we demonstrate it, we will find out. Now, maybe you were asking, how do we make sense of bite-sized learning? How can we make sense of meaningful learning? You guys are exposed with, social media. You are in Facebook. You've been in Facebook for quite a number of years. You probably engage in Instagram and Twitter and get to read a lot of tweets there, a lot of IG, captured moments, etc. And probably this time you are involved with a lot of platforms doing video conferences like Google Meet and a number of LMS or learning management systems that even companies are using in order to do their work from home setup. But really, how do we go about learning from what's happening right now? So how do we apply bite-sized learning? Okay, for example, you are reading an article or you are just watching a video or looking at an infographics or analyzing graph. Now, what do you usually, or perhaps you are a writer and you are doing you want to do an advertorial. And you see in the net that, there are high paying jobs right now done online, like search engine optimization, digital content marketers. Now, they do advertorials. And if you want to learn something like that, you focus on one goal first. And what kind of goal you would probably get into doing that? Understand first what's the whole thing about search engine optimization. It's just using keywords and then learn about it. And maybe you can do some sort of additional job in that area wherein there is an increase of need and demand for writers, for SEOs, etc. So today we will be exploring a picture. I'd like you to take a look at this particular slide. All right. So 7.2 billion on people on Earth. When was this taken? When was this done? Is another for us to explore. If you're showing this to kids, and your idea for kids to understand how many people do we now have in 2020, you can start with that particular of that 7.2 billion people on Earth. Now, capsulize. Are we really 7.2 billion? And if we are 7.2 billion, what year was that? Do we have 7.2 billion people still in times of pandemic? Was it lessened? Was it lessened, or was there an added number of people? So that's one. But if you want to analyze the whole picture, now what does it say? From the URL's title, Words Languages. Okay? And it was taken from Ulrich Amon from the University of Dusseldorf. So it's not a fake news. Why? Because it's sourced. And it was published in the Washington Post. For example, you would like to challenge your students for them to check if they know how to fact check a certain information. Then you can start from that. So there's a right away an effective indicator, or there is an indicator of effectiveness, because right away upon checking, students would answer that right now in 2020 there's not 7.2 billion people anymore. It's more and beyond that. It's around 10 point something billion people. So kids would be able to see the difference. Like, when was this published? Suppose this was in 2015. So 2015, fast forward 2020, now it's 10 point something. So how many had been added from the 5-year difference, etc.? So there are ways by which you can capsulize learning. And for example, all right, in the next slide, I like you to use the data I showed you to have an informed opinion as to which language is to learn this time. Is it Mandarin or Japanese? Based on the picture, which do you think is better to learn? Mandarin or Japanese, with the number of population of speakers of Mandarin or Chinese? Which do you think? So there is right away an indicator of effectiveness. Now, I might as well learn Mandarin because there are more Mandarin or Chinese speakers than Japanese. But again, all right, this is just an informed opinion, because the decision still lies where you are at, what you are involved with. But the data, or the factual data, can help you focus and can help you become willing to learn a language that's hard, that probably will not give you a reward right away. Again, based on that picture, it's not enough that we know how to speak English. Because even if English was number 3 only, can we go back to the slide and let's check? All right, let's take a look. So number 1 is Chinese. Number 2 is Hindi, Urdu, 588 million. English, 527. So even if English came third in terms of word languages, would that mean that I'm already okay with the English I know? That was in 2015. What about now? So again, this data alone, this picture alone, can help us learn more. Why? Because you will be challenged if the English I have right now, if the kind of English I am enjoying right now is already enough for me to, get into the global field. Okay? So, can you just imagine? All right. French came only 118 million. There are more Russian speakers than French, but a lot of Filipinos like to learn French. At least Filipinos I know. But never among my friends, I'm speaking of my circle, nobody in my circle wants to learn Arabic. But Arabic came, what? Fourth in the world languages, more than Spanish speakers. But do we know about that? Did we ever, become interested in learning Arabic? Well, but this data, okay, will, help us understand that even if it's bite-sized, it's capsulized, it's an effective indicator that, I might as well learn any of these first or top 5 languages. If I am referring to the best language I need to learn this time and age. Next, there are other objectives that can, be worked on just by looking at this picture. Next slide, ma'am. All right. For example, you are using that picture for high schoolers. You can show it to them, and then they should come up with an editorial why schools should include any of these languages in the curriculum. That's responsible writing. You don't go for one language simply because it's the language you favor. You, aside from favoring that language, it would be much better for you to support that favoring with an actual data as to the number of people who are speaking it, as to which populations speak more of this language than other language. So kids who are being trained to be writers now become responsible. They just don't write based on their opinion. They now write based on data. They now write, they don't just write because of their emotion. Now they write because there are data that, they can use to make their editorial more acceptable and more favorable. And this is also something you can use to as a support of your argument that, time to learn Mandarin. It's learning by doing. You just don't tell kids in school, Chinese is important, Mandarin is important to learn. You can do business. It's not enough because kids may not be able to understand that, or high schoolers. But if you show them that, look at how many people who are using Mandarin, it becomes more sensible. It comes with meaning. So they will not endeavor themselves learning the language simply because you told them. Right? Next slide, please. There's another picture. Okay, this one was taken in 2019 by Babel.com. It's a magazine. Now, most spoken languages in the world. Again, you get to see their Chinese, English, Punjab, Arabic, Spanish. Now, they are color-coded. Now, if you are not excited about the colors that were used to this, one objective that you can use as you show it to kids is probably challenge them to make this infographic or picture much, much, much better, or make this map far better than the way it looks right now. So that's one challenge, and that indicates effectiveness because the learners who will be involved in improving this map, okay, will, input their own creative imagination to make this map more, exciting to look at. But here today, this afternoon, take a look. Which do you think has the most number of speakers? Is it Chinese? Is it English? All right. So again, just by looking at the picture, just by looking at how it was presented and coming up with one particular specific goal, you can already achieve meaning out of what you are asking them to do. Now, is it something that kids only can do or adults can only do? Or this is too advanced for kids? No, it's all up to how you set your objectives. Am I making sense to you? All right, so let's take a look at the next set of objectives based and related on this particular picture. Next slide, ma'am. I mentioned that already. Make a better infographic of that particular, or probably you can help them explore information by reading further on businesses using Mandarin. So, for example, you are addressing kids beyond 18 years old, like they're already in the university or in college. You can use the picture for example, they're focusing on business. You can focus, you can have them focus or take a look at the data, whereby learning the language is not just because a requirement given by the school, but it's something that they can benefit from in the long run. Results may not be able to be seen right away, but in the long run, when they know how to speak Chinese or when they know how to speak Japanese or whatever language that is, it makes sense to whatever they're doing right now in the university. So it's projection setting, how important that language is in the business. If you want to stay in business, then you have no way but to learn it. Now, probably you can also ask teenagers or perhaps senior high school people or people who are just interested in watching videos to take a look at the top 5 YouTube videos that feature easy ways to learn Mandarin or Japanese or whatever language that is. Okay? Choosing the best, it's using wisdom. Or taking a look at the number who watched the video. And to make it more visible, right away, there's an exhibit of something. Now, to practice some Mandarin words after watching a video. So based on that picture, there's gonna be other things, even if it's just one objective. Indicator of effectiveness can take place either right after or, on the context of them, the idea sinking through the very depths of their mind or their involvement. So what I'm saying is, when we talk about meaningful learning or bite-sized learning, there has to be an objective, just one target objective. And let's say it's time, because it's modular, it's flexible and adaptable. Whatever time that is, as long as we can finish it in 30 minutes, this has to be, all right, the outcome. All right. So in short, okay, as we talk about these objectives based on the pictures, just by showing them, something is accomplished. Next slide, ma'am. All right. Is bite-sized learning only for adults? I think I said an answer to that already. Can this infographic be used to teach kids? Of course. But you have to level the kind of tasks you would like them to do. You would have them finished. Because no matter how complex a certain picture is, if you want to use it to engage kids in a certain development of skill, then it becomes appropriate for the age. What I'm saying is that, okay, if you want to capsulize learning of uh, children that who are staying home right now, if you want capsulize learning of people working from home right now, you have to understand that we can make use of certain something, provided that we can time it, provided that they do it regularly. There's practice, and when it's done regularly, there's mastery. Of course, it's done according to their own pace. There's autonomy, and most of all, it's purposeful. It comes with meaning. You can always use anything. It's something you can adjust. It's something flexible. It's highly dependent on the purpose by which you are using it. So even if it's a picture like that, you can use it for kids. You can use it for adults. You can use it for educators. You can use it for psychologists, for anyone who may be asking you which language is best to learn this time and age, right? So bite-sized learning or meaningful learning is for anybody who is willing to learn. You just have to individualize it based on their level, based on their interests, based on the meaning that they want to put into it. Keep in mind, bear this in mind, because it is focused, it encourages better knowledge retention. But what do we mean with that? When we encourage better knowledge retention, it is not something that they forget after the session or after fulfilling the requirement. They forget everything about it. Yung sinatawag natin, this is what we call short-term memory. No, because this is bite-sized, this is capsulized, that particular knowledge is retained. I had one session in the past, it's called metacognition. It's ART, acquired. Whatever is acquired has to be retained. A stands for acquired. If that knowledge is important and that has been acquired, then that has to be retained. In order for it to go through that metacognition phase, that has to be transferred. What is that going to be transferred if something has not been retained, right? So, because it's capsulized, it is understood that there's going to be better knowledge retention. And because it is capsulized, it establishes mastery. You know, when you do things in your own pace and you do it regularly, like an athlete, Kai Soto, who's now in NBA G League. You know him, right? First Filipino, I guess, in NBA. All right. So you can ask, he even skipped college just to get into NBA. Kobe Perez came back and, has taken part in UP Maroons, UAAP. So what am I saying? I have asked a lot of athletes in our university, and their life is practice. When they wake up in the morning, they practice. In the mid-afternoon, they practice. Before they sleep, they practice. So they became master of, each time they hit the ball, like Jaja Santiago. They are able to perfect it. They are able to master it. Now, it's capsulized. What I mean with that, when in the context of athletes, capsulized because that's what they are doing every single day. It's capsulized. Hitting the ball, spiking the ball, all right, shooting the ball, 3-pointers, etc. That's what they do, and they become masters of it. Look at Michael. What's the name of that guy? Michael, who retired and then went to football. Okay, the Nike guy. All right, they do it. they do it by practice, and then they become master of it because it is capsulized and enjoys an autonomy. Like improvements and progress are easily measured. Like if you're not satisfied, for example, I had given talks before and I wasn't satisfied. So I told myself I'm gonna be better next time. So you do some improvements and progress that is that are visible right away because you are willing, you initiate, that you initiate an action whereby you would be able to see that I have become better, I have improved. Because it is at home or anywhere kind of learning, learners can do it anytime, anywhere, or any device. Meaning, because they are willing, even if they are at the comforts of the bedroom, they're lying down. Things are going on in their mind. Things are taking place because they are willing to learn. Because it is modular, it is flexible, it is adaptable, learners are in control of their learning journeys, but yet guided in the right direction. Usually bite-sized or capsulized learning, as I said, it has a certain number of minutes devoted into it. If you are working in a corporate world, bite-sized learning is what they engage with. They would like their people to continuously learn something about the current developments in technology. Like there's one particular site, you can just Google it, Bright Talk. Another YouTube popular, Bright Side. So Bright Talk has something to do with bite-sized offerings, capsulized offerings, wherein in 30 minutes or 40 minutes you can learn about B2B marketing, you can learn about cloud, etc. On the other hand, Bright Side YouTube videos would help you understand visually why what kind of wall is separating Pacific Ocean and Atlantic Ocean. So they have a way of showing it visually in terms of colors of water, in terms of the projection that there seems to be a wall, but there really isn't a wall. They do that. Or how deep is Mariana's Trench? It's capsulized. After watching in 10 minutes, you get to learn. Now, next is what kind of outcome will that give you? Then perhaps if you are just doing nothing but you want to make a purposeful video watching, then you get to understand how deep is Mariana's Trench. How many 5-foot people, okay, will have to be put together in order to take a look at its depth, and so on and forth. So bite size, it's not only for adults, it's for everyone. It's for everyone who's willing to learn. I think I'm almost done. And the next slide will be all about, the references I use in sharing this. And of course, who am I? What do I do? And I just like us to understand that I am a teacher. I'm a multitasking educational rock star who lives to inspire and loves to encourage. They're kind of big deal for me. So I'm not here to monopolize learning. I'm here to inspire, to encourage, because I know the world needs encouragement. I know young people needs to be inspired, but always believe that, it's one thing to be inspired, but it's another to be inspired about what. All right. So we just have to, understand that I am here, Glendora, as a teacher, and you can always connect with me. I'm a buzz away. So the remaining minutes will be devoted to question and answer. And I hope you ask questions, because I feel like I'm talking alone when you don't raise a question. Fortunately, I have few questions here from Andy. How can we apply it to skill-based subjects? Skill-based subjects. All right, that's a very interesting question. He had an example here like MAPE, TLE, and ICT. It's interesting. Can I just use ICT? All right, for example, bite-sized learning in ICT, and you are staying at home. You want them to learn about games or gamification. Why not ask them one particular goal, and then that is to explore um, um, the the routines in Mobile Legend. Those who are playing, those who are not, you can go have them back in doing HTML, because the very foundation of all these games came from coding or HTML. Correct me if I'm wrong, but ICT that we offer right now should progress, because if you take a look at the ICT books that schools offer right now, it still starts from the history and like that, but you can do it a little further than that. Am I talking sense, Andy? So what I'm saying is, come up with a certain specific objective, very short one, easy to do, based on the schema or prior knowledge of your learners, and then let them try it. You will be surprised that they can do better at it. I like to use another music. All right. For example, your lesson has something to do with learning instrument, or in PE, how to play badminton. Now it's something skill based, right? And how will you go about it? No, you can start by checking first their understanding of serving the shuttlecock. Am I right? I'm not really a badminton player, but when there is a way, a certain kind of understanding by which you serve it. Okay, just like serving the volleyball, when you do it the spike way. I mean, if you are a major on MAPE, on ICT, or TLE, you can always find a way to capsulize um, learning. It's really challenging, but it is interesting as well, because as teachers, you get to, become imaginative. You get to become more creative, and you get to really, really, really think as to how you can simplify or capsulize it. Tell me, Andy, if I answered it or not. And then from Francis, all right, can we use it in public schools considering the limitations? I believe so, sweetheart. I believe so, Francis. Public schools all the more need capsulized learning. Why? Because, diba, they come from families who may not be able to enjoy the comforts of their home. Let's face it, I saw from TV, some kids who even go out just to use the posts, the lamp, the light coming from the post in order for them to read. But again, we still can capsulize, learning, even if with that kind of limitation. We just have to know them. We just have to know where they are at. That's why in self-learning, if you go back to my slides, there's some sort of diagnosis there. We have to diagnose where they are at, because if we do not know where they are at, we might be giving them something that's really, really beyond their comprehension or their understanding of things. So we really need to know them. That's why the enrollment now, I'm following it up with DepEd, and I admire Leo Briones for the blended learning kind of stuff for the public school. I do suggest, if you come from public school, let's form a group. Let's come up with something that we guys can benefit from, and at the same time will benefit our students more from the public schools. I'm willing to help. From Talia Ana, bite-sized learning for one student who are quite poor in English, naku, mas lalong nakakatulong yan. Though if we think that there are students who are kind of behind, bite-sized learning is really, really, really applicable. Kasi instead of giving them too much, why don't you start, let's say, from building vocabulary. All right, building vocabulary starting from root word, taking away the eds, the ing, and then let them demonstrate how they understand a certain word based on their way they demonstrate it. So that's capsulized learning. Little things that will make them show that I understood what you were talking about or what you're saying. So if somebody in the class or somebody you think is kind of behind, quote unquote poor, then all the more we can apply bite-sized learning or capsulized learning. And you will be very, very, very happy because right after 30 minutes, something is going to change in them. I'm teaching people who have zero English. And my goal is always after the end of 30 minutes, they can tell me one English word that we talked about for the past 20 minutes, and then they will demonstrate it. That really, really made me so happy. From Rhea, may steps po ba in conceptualizing? Do you believe po ba that it's teacher-based? Kasi ganito yun eh. Lahat tayo pwede maging teacher, kahit bata. The most important thing with bite-sized learning is we put meaning into whatever we are doing. So if a kid gets to understand that, this makes sense to me because if I learn this, I'll be able to do this. So parang sa games, pag natutunan niya yung routines ng Mobile Legend, mapopromote siya. So the principle behind it will help him understand that, I can teach myself in making myself better. So to answer your question, my sweetheart, is of course yung step by step kasi we can do that, we can learn that. But the most important starting point that I suggest is yung willingness na gusto talaga nating matuto. Yun yung, for me, is the very first step. You don't have very first step. We don't have to be a teacher to be able to do that first step, right? Okay, Ma'am Myra, how can we apply this to experiments po in science? Ayan, very interesting. Alam mo, Ma'am Myra, ito yung isa sa mga frustrations ko. Kasi, why was I not involved in the science field? That's so interesting. That's so encompassing. And how come a lot of young people now are less and less of them are majoring in science? Diba? Parang kukunti lang nagme-major ng chemistry, may major ng physics. But these are most interesting subjects in the world right now. In fact, in terms of scholarships from all over the world, napakaraming available for sciences. But there are less competent, confident takers. Why is that? Maybe because we failed to explore capsulized learning. Kasi capsulized learning does not end in itself. It actually helps students to explore further. Hindi yan nag-stop lang na-achieve mo na may effective indicator na the indicator for effectiveness has been manifested and it ends there. No, it progresses. Maybe this is just my opinion. The very reason why not many people are interested in science, maybe because science teachers fail to focus on capsulized learning. Na right after me teaching this concept, I like them to show their understanding of this scientific concept right away. Can we try to do that if you are a science teacher? Baka it will make sense, Ma'am Myra. Baka hindi pa talaga na-try ng mga science educators, capsulized learning. I really believe na because it is meaningful learning, I really believe that as we try it in teaching science concepts or even mathematics concept, baka mas madaming mag-major ng science and mas maraming maging interested sa mathematics. Are you with me? So, frustration ko yan kasi gustong-gusto ko yung science pero I wasn't trained to be having that scientific mind. But fortunately, I'm lucky to have been blessed with an with an eldest child. I have an eldest child, my first child, who majored in science, biochemist po siya. And God is good. Kasi kahit na hindi ako naging involved sa sciences, meron naman ako naging anak na scientist. I hope I answered your questions and see you again next time sa YouTube videos natin sa Bival. Thank you so much for those who have participated and how I wish we can form a group that will really popularize bite-sized learning or meaningful learning in the fields of the sciences and mathematics para mas maraming maka-enjoy ng math and mas maraming maka-enjoy ng science. Love you. God bless you all. Thanks, Bival, for the opportunity. Bye.